every Bengals player, when asked, agreed that the Cleveland team they'll play tomorrow in the Battle of Ohio isn't the same one they beat at Paul Brown Stadium back in September. Denny Jansen breaks down the difference from Cleveland. DJ?
It is safe to say that the Browns team that Cincinnati plays here tomorrow is not the same team that visited Paul Brown Stadium in September. But for that matter, this is not the same Bengals team that won that day. They are still trying to recover from the collateral damage suffered in that win. Remember, that was the game they lost linebacker David Pollock for the season with a broken neck. Two other starters, Tab Perry and Rich Bram, haven't played since. It's been something of a mixed blessing, very mixed.
It does need no good to waste any time or energy looking backwards, and all we can do is find another way, find a better way, and keep moving forward. So the good, as you said, the advantage is a lot of guys have gotten a chance to play.
And Sunday promises more of the same from both sides.
Looking back in the season, I think this is one of the tougher games we played because they come off the ball. You know, we did end up winning the game and moved on from that Cleveland game early in the year, but looking back, that was one of the more physical games we played.
Unlike previous battles of Ohio in November, especially in Cleveland, the weather won't be a factor on Sunday. It could be downright balmy. We'll be here for it. Until then, with Brooks J. Merriweather, Dennis Jansen, Channel 9 Sports in Cleveland. Back to you, Lisa.
Welcome to the Sports Authority. I'm Tara Packmeyer, and we've got all your NFL scores and fantasy stats on the ticker at the bottom of the screen. We'll have plenty of analysis from Willie Anderson and Eric Guycheck, the linemen in studio for a chat following today's Browns bashing. And our Who Asked You experts will offer their thoughts as well. But we begin with the highlights, where a highlight would obviously be back-to-back road wins. The Bengals haven't done that since this time in 2003. The Bengals beat the Chargers and Steelers on the road to end November 3 years ago. Plus, today's game is a good old-fashioned rivalry, with both teams winning 33 of the 66 previous regular season meetings.
It's going down, baby. Keep your eyes open. You might miss something.
Don't want to miss anything, including living legend Jim Brown in attendance. Brown led the NFL in rushing 8 of the 9 seasons he played for the Browns. Cleveland wins the toss, elects to receive. Former Kent State standout Joshua Cribbs flashes on the return, taking this one 101 yards from one end of the field to the other. Touchdown. Or not. Offensive holding moves the ball all the way back to Cleveland's own 18. 3rd and 7, same series. Landon Johnson drops Charlie Frye for the 40th sack allowed by the Browns this season, forcing the fumble, but Kevin Schaefer recovers. Still Browns ball, but only so they can punt it away. Rudy Johnson, 29 yards on 5 carries in the 14-play first series, cap with a 1-yard Rudy rushing score on 4th down. Instead of settling for a field goal, the Bengals get the 7-0 lead. Browns help the Bengals a bit on 3rd and 7 on the Cleveland 44. Brian Russell flagged for defensive pass interference on the 36-yard toss to Chad Johnson. Bengals move to the 8, where Carson eventually connects 7 yards with Chris Henry for the second quarter score. Bengals up 14-0. That's Henry's 5th TD, Palmer's 19th. Brace yourself for the oh-no moment of the game. Chris Perry putting together a nice 10-yard run, cuts through a hole only to get bent over backwards by Andre Davis. Perry carted off the field with a broken bone in his right leg. Remember, he was just back from left ankle and knee surgeries in the offseason. Phil Dawson with a rare 48-yard field goal miss gives the Bengals the ball on the 38-yard line. Carson looks deep, finding Chad 43 yards down the middle. 123 yards on 7 catches today, 85's third 100-plus game. Leads to a Shane Graham field goal. The 24-yarder gives Cincinnati the 17-zip lead. Frye tosses up a Hail Mary at the end of the first half that Kevin Kaesviharn comes down with. Case leads the Bengals with 5 interceptions in 11 games, but this game 11, it isn't finished. 10-play, 70-yard series starts the second half. Palmer hooks up with TJ Hushmanzada for the 6-yard passing score. Graham misses his first career PAT after a high snap, but the Bengals still have the commanding 23-0 advantage. Marvin not easing up, making sure Frye feels the heat. Under pressure, Torrey James picks off the pass intended for Braylon Edwards, but the only thing the Bengals do is throw it back. Carson's pass intended for Chad, intercepted by Brian Russell at the Cleveland 35 on 2nd and 10. CJ doesn't touch him. Russell picks up 6 yards, but don't worry, Torrey James picks off Frye a second time on the next possession. Cincinnati with the ball to start the 4th. This time Carson doesn't miss his target. Henry gets his second score in the game. The 10-yarder gives the Bengals the 30-0 lead. Frye sacked 4 times today. The 4th, the Robert Gathers drop for a 10-yard loss on 3rd down. Defense continuing to shine till the end. Kaesviharn interrupts another Frye pass pointed towards Edwards. That's the 5th takeaway in the game. Cincinnati holds Cleveland to 203 total yards of offense, blanking the Browns 30-0. It's the Bengals' first shutout since beating the Browns 21-0 in Cleveland in December of '89. Chad Johnson, 11 years old at the time, and only dreaming of 573 yards in 3 consecutive games. He now owns the league's record for most yards in a trio of contests. Carson goes 25 of 32 for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Frye just 18 of 29 for 186 yards, 4 interceptions. Rudy leads all rushers with 64 yards on 25 carries. So the much maligned Bengals defense allows just 203 yards while forcing the 5 turnovers and allows just 9 first downs. So obviously much of the praise going to the unit inside the locker room.
We got talent on this defense, and we got guys that can make plays, and for whatever reason it just wasn't all there, and we got to keep playing like we did today, and keep building on it.
It's just one game. You can't get happy with 1 or 2 games. It's 16 weeks, and that's consistency, doing it every week, not just this week or every other week. We have to do it against the better teams also.
You know what? I think we've had the talent to do something like this throughout the season. We just never put it together for 4 quarters, and today was a day where everything just clicked. Everybody came together, and we played from first through the 4th quarter, and the end result was a shutout.
And it's time for you to make the call. What was most impressive in the win versus the Browns? The defense posting a shutout. How about the 5 takeaways and 4 sacks? Maybe Carson's numbers, 25 of 32, 275 yards, 3 scores, and 121 quarterback rating. Or perhaps Chad catching 7 more balls for 123 yards. His 3rd straight game over 100 yards. Call 345-1212 to vote. Results later in the show. Time for Who Asked You with 1530 host Richard Skinner and former Bengal John Jackson. The Bengals today beat the Browns 30-0, their first shutout since 1989 when the Bengals beat the Browns 21-0. Before John says anything, I was 12, Carson was 10. We get it. Your thoughts on today's game? Well,
I thought it was a great game from start to finish. I mean, you look at what they did when they came out. First 5 possessions, they scored. And that's key, especially being on the road. You've got to score, and you've got to set that precedent, especially going forward on 4th down in the red zone. I mean, they did what they had to do. I mean, they were 50% in the 3rd down category, and that's what you have to do, play winning football.
Good momentum all around after today's performance.
Yeah, and I think the momentum started last week in that 4th quarter. They were in a tight spot in New Orleans where honestly the season could have gone either way, and they made plays in the 4th quarter, and it carried over into today, both offensively and defensively, and this is what you want. I mean, 5 weeks to go, you've kind of got the ball rolling a little bit here the right way, kind of like Pittsburgh did to some extent last year. They were dead in the water, almost like this team was dead in the water. Found that momentum, and they rode it all the way to the Super Bowl.
Defensively, specifically, the Bengals hold the Browns to 203 yards of total offense.
Yeah, I think either Ohio State or USC right now might be able to hold the Browns to 203 yards. They're a bad offensive team. They're a bad team in general.
No, I think Cole Rain
might be able to, or Hilliard Davidson after the win. But, it was good. The defense needed this for a confidence boost because, even though you were playing 2 great offenses the last 2 weeks prior to this, and they probably knew how good those offensive teams were. At the same time, you know what? You still don't want to get torched for 42 points and a half or get torched for 600 yards like they did against New Orleans. And to bounce back today, that's got to be a huge boost for everybody on defense.
And 4 picks, 2 for Kevin Kaesviharn, 2 for Torrey James.
But anytime you've got a shutout, I mean, I think that builds a team's confidence. And this is going to build some confidence, especially going into the Baltimore week. I mean, it's going to be a short week. Those guys are probably going to have tomorrow off. They'll practice Tuesday. And then Wednesday, they're ready for the game. And then they play Thursday. So real short week, and it's a big game. It's a conference game. It's one of those games they've got to win.
Can you make a case that Kevin Kaesviharn is the defense MVP right now?
I agree. If we sit here today and today was the last game of the season, I would say yes. And as good as Justin Smith has played this year, Kevin Kaesviharn has made big play after big play after big play. And the last 2 weeks, 3 interceptions and 3 quarterback sacks. That speaks for itself. And this is a guy who at best on this club is the 3rd safety, yet he's playing almost like their best player on defense. So kudos to him. He's been great.
As well as Torrey James needing to almost essentially prove why he is in his spot that he might not have had if everybody was healthy.
Yeah, if Deltha O'Neal was healthy, Deltha would play, and I'm not so sure that Torrey would. Torrey might be the nickel guy. They might still move Jonathan Joseph out, but for Torrey James, I mean, a confidence boost for him because, you know, even though he's probably on the back nine of his career, and he probably even understands that, probably would understand if he was out of the lineup, but for him to play like that today has got to be big for him down the stretch as well.
And you wouldn't think that Chad Johnson needs confidence, but today is the third game in a row where he puts up big numbers, 573 yards in 3 games for the third consecutive leading rusher after 3 consecutive games. Talk about him.
I mean, Chad's doing a phenomenal job. I mean, you look at the last 3 games, what he's doing, but I think he's also stepping his game up where he needs to step it up because the Bengals need a leader, and Chad's being that leader as far as stepping those games up.
Offensive line doing their job now?
I think offensive line still needs a little tweaking. They gave up 2 sacks today, but they gave up a lot of pressures. And the one thing that concerns me is the number of hits that Carson Palmer's taken. He cannot afford to keep taking those hits because I'm afraid he might not get up.
A concern is seeing Chris Perry go down.
Yeah, it is, except for I feel it's more of a concern for Chris. I feel bad for Chris Perry, who's had to go through a lot of stuff coming back. But, you know, this offense has had to do without him anyway this year. They've only had him for a handful of touches, a handful of carries, a handful of receptions. He's returned a couple of kickoff here and there. So it's not like it's going to be a big adjustment with Chris Perry being out of the lineup. I feel for him, but this isn't like it's a big blow to this football team because they've adjusted without him.
And on the flip side, now we're going to start to see guys coming back.
Right. Especially this week, they're talking about the offensive line might be a little more healthier with Levi Jones and Richie Brown, but I'm not too sure about Richie Brown. You hope those other guys get healthy, especially on defense, because they need him. You need Brian back, and you hope that he comes back this week. It's a big week, and they need him.
First series of the game, Rudy gets a touchdown, a 1-yard rushing touchdown, but after the Bengals go for it on 4th down without settling for a field goal. Big.
Yeah, it was because, you know, at that stage of the game, it was a no-lose proposition. I mean, they made the right call even if they had not gotten it, but I think that kind of set a tone. And if you're Cleveland and you're sitting there thinking, all right, how are we going to keep up with these guys today? We had a chance to stop them. We didn't stop them. Here they go back on the field. They give it right back to the Bengals after a few plays and punt it, and the Bengals go right back down the field again. That right there, it completely set the tone because once Cleveland got behind by a couple of scores, their offense isn't good enough to play catch-up.
It's a short week, national TV, Bengals-Ravens Thursday night. Who wins?
I say the Bengals. The Bengals have to use the momentum that they're going the last couple games, but this is one of those games where they've got to win this game because if they lose, they're pretty much out of the playoff picture.
Yeah, I think the Bengals win. They're playing very, very well right now. Not that Baltimore's not. Baltimore's playing great. They're on the same short week as well. But, you know, I'm just not so sold on Baltimore's offense. Right now, this Bengal offense, even against Baltimore's defense, as good as it is going to score in the 20s. And I just don't think Baltimore can catch up, especially if the weather gets bad like it might.
All right, John, you wore your Huxtable last week. You got your cowboy boots on today. We can't wait till next week, you guys. Thanks
These
so
not even
much.
cowboy boots. She doesn't know what she's talking about. These are pretty spiffy boots. Yeah.
You made the call. Now here are your results. What was most impressive in the win versus the Browns? 54% say the shutout. 25% going with the takeaways and sacks. Thanks for the more than 700 votes tonight.